Welcome back. It's time for Act 2, Scene 4 with Benvolio and Mercutio. Now, as you are watching these videos, of course, best practice is to read along while you watch and listen. And if you have your book on you, that is the best move. There's a lot of footnotes in the book, and there are no footnotes on the video. So I'll explain some things, but I'm not going to go through things in as much detail as you see in the book. And so that will always be my advice to you, is to read those footnotes in your book while you watch and listen. If you don't have it for whatever reason, left it in your backpack somewhere else, whatever, totally understandable. Watching and listening as you read on the screen is better than nothing. But just know that there's some important stuff there. Because this scene has Mercutio in it, there are always a lot of footnotes for him. Like you can see on this page, it's more than a third of the page. It's almost half of the text size on this page, and this page isn't much further behind. So as you are reading and listening, feel free to look at those or to pause and look at those as we're going along. I'll talk about a few things, of course, but it won't be as extreme detail as it would be if you were able to look at those. So this scene, Romeo has just left Friar Lawrence's cell. Friar Lawrence said, "Yes, I'll perform the wedding ceremony for you and Juliet." Benvolio and Romeo are, as you can see here, looking for Romeo. They don't know where he is. And as they are walking around, it's morning, it's Monday, it's the next day. This is day 2 of the play. And the first thing they're going to talk about is how how Tybalt has sent a letter to Lord Capulet with a challenge for Romeo. And so they tease Tybalt for a while, and then Romeo shows up finally. They don't know where he's been. As far as they know, the last time they saw him was Romeo ditching them at the party. So Romeo shows up and they get into that conversation. So if you would listen in, here we go. Let's hear the beginning of scene 4.
Scene 4, a street. Enter Benvolio and Mercutio.
Where the devil should this Romeo be? Came he not home tonight?
Not to his father's. I spoke with his man.
Ah, that same pale, hard-hearted wench, that Rosaline, torments him so that he will sure run mad.
Tybalt, the kinsman of old Capulet, hath sent a letter to his father's house.
A challenge, on my life.
Romeo will answer it.
Any man that can write may answer a letter.
He will answer the letter's master how he dares, being dared.
Alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead. Stabbed with a white wench's black eye. Shot through the ear with a love song. The very pin of his heart cleft with the blind bow-boy's butt shaft. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt?
Just want to point out here, alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead. Something similar is going to come up later in this scene, but it says he was stabbed with a white wench's black eye, run through the ear with a love song, etc. Basically, Mercutio is saying Romeo is so pathetic right now that he's not himself. He may as well be dead because of this sorrow for love that Romeo is experiencing. Mercutio is about to call Tybalt the Prince of Cats, and that is a reference, as it says in the book, to the medieval stories of Reynard the Fox, where there's a cat who's named either Tybalt or Tibert. And so as the play goes on, Prince of Cats comes up several times as a nickname for Tybalt. So just wanted to explain that reason. That's a cultural reference that we don't necessarily recognize, but Shakespeare's audience would have. So what is Tybalt? Here we go.
Why, what is Tybalt?
More than a prince of cats, I can tell you. Oh, he's the courageous captain of compliments. He fights as you sing prick song, keeps time, distance, and proportion. Rests me his minim rest. 1, 2, and the third in your bosom. The very butcher of a silk button, a duelist, a duelist. a gentleman of the very first house, of the first and second cause. Ah, the immortal passado, the punto reverso, the hay,
The what?
the pox of such antic, lisping, affected fantasticos. These new tuners of accents. By Jesu, a very good blade, a very tall man, a very good whore. Why, is not this a lamentable thing, grandsire, that we should be thus afflicted with these strange flies, these fashion mongers, these pardonnez-mois, who stand so much on the new form that they cannot sit at ease on the old bench? Oh, their bonds, their bonds.
So as he's teasing Tybalt, the first thing he talks about is Tybalt's fencing or sword fighting etiquette. He talks about these different moves that Tybalt uses. And then in this last one, he's making fun of his fashion. Tybalt, apparently to Mercutio, seems very stuffy. And everything's got to be fashionable and perfect and etc. And that bothers Mercutio for some reason. So that's that. Romeo's going to enter. And as Mercutio has this long line about Romeo, what he's doing is he's comparing Romeo and his love to all these famous women from history and culture, from stories that they know, from all these stories. And you'll see he mentions Laura, Dido, Cleopatra, Helen and Hero, and then Thisbe is the last one. It's interesting that he mentions Thisbe because, as it says in your footnote, Pyramus and Thisbe were young lovers whose story resembles that of Romeo and Juliet. And that Pyramus and Thisbe actually is a story that was written before Romeo and Juliet was written. And so Shakespeare probably borrowed a good amount of ideas for the plot from that story as he was putting this one together. So this is an interesting reference here that he points directly to Thisbe in his story. So anyway, let's hear more from Mercutio. As we go through the next couple pages, there's a lot of wordplay between Romeo and Mercutio. I'm going to let this roll for a little longer than usual before pausing. Again, you want the specifics, read the footnotes in your book for most of it. And then before the nurse shows up, we'll pause. We'll talk about a couple things. Here we go.
Here comes Romeo! Here comes Romeo!
Without his roe, like a dried herring. O flesh, flesh, how art thou fishified? Now is he for the numbers that Petrarch flowed in. Laura to his lady was but a kitchen wench. Marry, she had a better love to berhyme her. Dido, a dowdy. Cleopatra, a gypsy. Helen and Hero, Hildings and harlots. Thisbe, a grey eye or so, but not to the purpose.
Enter Romeo.
Signor Romeo, bonjour. There is a French salutation to your French slop. You gave us the counterfeit fairly last night.
Good morrow to you both. What counterfeit did I give you?
The counterfeit, this is Mercutio accusing Romeo of ditching them at the party, which of course he did.
The slip, sir, the slip. Can you not conceive?
Pardon, good Mercutio. My business was great, and in such a case as mine, a man may strain courtesy.
That's as much to say, such a case as yours constrains a man to bow in the hands.
Meaning to courtesy.
Thou hast most kindly hit it.
A most courteous exposition.
Nay, I am the very pink of courtesy.
Pink for flower.
Right.
Why then, is my pump well flowered?
Well said. Follow me this jest now, till thou hast worn out thy pump, that when the single soul of it is worn, the jest may remain, after the wearing, soul singular.
Oh, single-souled jest, solely singular for the singleness.
Come between us, good Benvolio. My wits faint.
Swits and spurs, or I'll cry a match.
Nay, if thy wits run the wild goose chase, I have done. For thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than I am sure I have in my whole 5. Was I with you there for the goose?
Thou wast never with me for anything when thou wast not there for the goose.
I will bite thee by the ear for that jest.
Nay, good goose, bite not.
Thy wit is a very bitter sweeting. It is a most sharp sauce.
And is it not, then, well served into a sweet goose?
Oh, here's a wit of Cheveril that stretches from an inch narrow to an ell broad.
I will stretch it out for that word broad, which added to the goose proves thee far and wide a broad goose.
Oh, why, is this not better now than groaning for love? Now art thou sociable. Now art thou Romeo. Now art thou what thou art, by art as well as by nature. For this driveling love is like a great natural that runs lolling up and down to hide his bauble in a hole.
I hope you caught that. And I love Mercutio's laugh at the beginning of that long line, because as we hear this, they're going back and forth. And even if we didn't understand every single reference, we understand how Romeo and Mercutio have this wordplay, this rapid fire conversation, lots of back and forth, and they're laughing and they're having a good time. And Mercutio pauses and he laughs and he looks at Romeo and he says, "Isn't this better than groaning for love? Now you are sociable. Now you are Romeo. Now you are what you are." What he's saying is, earlier when you were crying about love all this time, that wasn't really you. He mentioned earlier in the scene, he said Romeo's dead, right? Well, now he's glad to have his friend back. He's excited, he's happy, he's laughing, they're having a good time. This is a really, really good thing to Mercutio and for their friendship, that Romeo is in such a good mood and ready to chat and go back and forth like this. The nurse and Peter are about to show up, as you can see. It's interesting. We see Romeo's line here. "Here's goodly gear, a sail, a sail." In this it says, or in this footnote, it says that some versions give that line about goodly gear to Mercutio, and then that line to Benvolio. And it's interesting because in this scene, you'll see Mercutio is being kind of mean to the nurse. He's not very nice. She's taken aback by him. And that starts with that line. And so it's interesting because Romeo starts that, and that's not who Romeo is. Romeo's not mean. And Mercutio, like, people like him, but he just doesn't care. And so he'll just say whatever, right? So anyway, let's start reading this, and we'll get the nurse and Peter onto the stage.
Stop there, stop there.
Thou desirest me to stop in my tail against the hair.
Thou wouldst else have made thy tail large.
Oh, thou art deceived. I would have made it short, for I was come to the whole depth of my tail, and meant indeed to occupy the argument no longer.
Here's goodly gear.
Enter nurse and Peter.
A sail, a sail, a sail.
Two, a shirt and a smock.
So first of all, a sail, the connection there is, if somebody's walking toward you and you describe them as a boat, it's a fat joke, right? So that's why it's weird for this to be Romeo. Like, it seems like that's more of a Mercutio type of line. But he says, "Look, here comes somebody, a sail." Mercutio says, "Oh, there's two."
Peter,
Anon.
my fan, Peter.
Good Peter, to hide her face, for her fans the fairer face.
It's hot outside, okay? It's still early in the day, but it's July, it's the summer, and the nurse has been walking all over town to try and find Romeo. So she asks for her fan, okay? And Mercutio says, "Yes, Peter, get her fan to hide her face, for her fan's the fairer face," meaning give her fan so she can hide her face, because her fan is prettier than her face. I would rather look at her fan than her ugly face. Yeah. The nurse either doesn't hear that or chooses to ignore it and just continue and just starts the conversation.
God ye good morrow, gentlemen.
God ye good den, fair gentlewoman.
Is it good den?
'Tis no less, I tell ye, for the body hand of the dial is now upon the prick of noon.
Out upon you! What a man are you!
One gentlewoman that God hath made for himself to mar.
By my troth, it is well said. For himself to mar, quoth he. Gentlemen, can any of you tell me where I may find the young Romeo?
I can tell you, but young Romeo will be older when you have found him than he was when you sought him. I am the youngest of that name, for fault of a worse.
You say well.
Yea, is the worst well? Very well took, i' faith. Wisely, wisely.
If you be he, sir, I desire some confidence with you.
She will indict him to some supper.
What hast thou found?
No hairs.
Interesting. The audio version didn't have Mercutio's line there. Abad, abad. Huh. But the nurse says, I desire some confidence with you. She's using the wrong word here. She means to say conference, like a one-on-one conversation. And then Benvolio teases her, saying she will indict him to some supper. Of course, instead of invite. So just like the nurse did on accident, Benvolio uses the wrong word on purpose to tease her, right? Mercutio thinks that's hilarious. What hast thou found? And then Mercutio sings this little song before he leaves the stage.
Sir, unless a hare, sir, in a Lenten pie, that is something stale and a whore ere it be spent.
Sings.
An old hare whore and an old hare whore is very good meat in Lent. But a hare that is whore is too much for a score when it whores ere it be spent. Romeo, will you come to your father's? We'll to dinner thither.
I will follow you.
Farewell, ancient lady, farewell.
Singing.
Lady, lady, lady.
Exeunt Mercutio and Benvolio.
So now the nurse is like really taken aback by Mercutio and all of his wordplay and whatever. And he's so, or she is so flustered that it takes her a while to finally tell Romeo the reason she's there.
Marry, farewell. I pray you, sir, what saucy merchant was this that was so full of his ropery?
A gentleman, nurse, that loves to hear himself talk, and will speak more in a minute than he will stand to in a month.
And to speak anything against me, I'll take him down. And we're lustier than he is, and 20 such jacks. And if I cannot, I'll find those that shall. Scurvy knave. I am none of his flirt gills. I am none of his skeins mates. And thou must stand by, too, and suffer every knave to use me at his pleasure.
I saw no man use you at his pleasure. If I had, my weapon should quickly have been out, I warrant you. I dare draw as soon as another man, if I see occasion in a good quarrel, and the law is on my side.
Now, afore God, I am so vexed that every part about me quivers. Scurvy knave. Pray you, sir, a word. And as I told you, my young lady bid me inquire you out. What she bade me say, I will keep to myself. But first, let me tell ye, if ye should lead her into a fool's paradise, as they say, it were a very gross kind of behavior, as they say, for the gentlewoman is young, and therefore, if you should deal double with her, truly it were an ill thing to be offered to any gentlewoman, and very weak dealing.
Nurse, commend me to thy lady and mistress. I protest unto thee.
Good heart and in faith, I will tell her as much. Lord, Lord, she will be a joyful woman.
What wilt thou tell her, nurse? Thou dost not mark me.
I will tell her, sir, that you do protest, which, as I take it, is a gentlemanlike offer.
All right, pay attention, because Romeo's got this line, and then go to I say you shall, and then one more line. And these are the two plans that he tells the nurse to relay to Juliet. Okay, so here's plan number one.
Bid her devise some means to come to shrift this afternoon, and there she shall at Friar Lawrence's cell be shrived and married. Here is for thy pains.
All right, so plan number one, bid her devise some means to come to shrift this afternoon. Remember, shrift is confession at the church. So bid her devise means tell her to come up with something, okay? Tell her to come up with some excuse to come to confession this afternoon, because her parents aren't gonna approve this wedding. They're not gonna let her just leave in the middle of the day to go get married, but they will let her go to confession. So tell her to come up with some excuse for why she has to go to confession this afternoon. There at Friar Lawrence's cell, she'll confess, she'll be shrived, and then while she's there, she'll be married. We'll have the ceremony. So he offers her money, she doesn't take it, and then he gives her the second part of the plan.
No, truly, sir, not a penny.
Go to, I say you shall.
This afternoon, sir. Well, she shall be there.
And stay, good nurse, behind the abbey wall. Within this hour, my man shall be with thee, and bring thee cords made like a tackled stair, which to the high top gallant of my joy must be my convoy in the secret night. Farewell. Be trusty, and I'll quit thy pains. Farewell. Commend me to thy mistress.
So here's the second plan. He says, he tells the nurse within the hour, someone will come find her and bring her cords made like a tackled stair. Okay. What is that? Cords made like a tackled stair? Well, basically it's a rope ladder. Okay. Which, Romeo says, must be my convoy in the secret night. So he says, hang tight for a moment. Within the hour, someone will bring you a rope ladder that you should take to Juliet. The rope ladder will be my convoy in the secret night. So this afternoon, Juliet will come to Friar Lawrence's cell, be shrived and married. Then the rope ladder is for the balcony. Now, despite what we see in every Romeo and Juliet movie, Romeo doesn't climb up into the balcony during the balcony scene, because we need to set up this part later in the play where he needs the rope ladder in order to get up there, okay? He knows he can climb over the wall. He did that already, but now he's going to have a way to climb up into the balcony and then into Juliet's room after the wedding. There's that. Let's finish this scene.
Now God in heaven bless thee. Hark you, sir.
What sayst thou, my dear nurse?
Is your man secret? Did you ne'er hear say, two may keep counsel, putting one away?
I warrant thee, my man's as true as steel.
Well, sir, my mistress is the sweetest lady. Lord, Lord, when 'twas a little prating thing. Oh, there's a nobleman in town, one Paris, that would fain lay knife aboard. But she, good soul, had as lief see a toad, a very toad, as see him. I anger her sometimes and tell her that Paris is the proper man. But I'll warrant you, when I say so, she looks as pale as any clout in the versal world. Doth not Rosemary and Romeo both begin with a letter?
Ay, nurse, what of that? Both with an R.
Ah, mocker. What's the dog's name? R is for the dog. No, I know it begins with some other letter. And she hath the prettiest sententious of it, of you and Rosemary, that it would do you good to hear it.
Commend me to thy lady.
Aye, 1,000 times.
Exit Romeo.
Peter,
Anon?
Peter, take my fan and go before.
Exit.
All right. That's funny. I've never heard that take my fan thing. I've always just heard what it says here, before and a pace. So there's this whole bit, the nurse really likes Paris. And there's this whole bit about how Paris wants Juliet. I think that Paris is better for Juliet, but whenever I say it to her, she gets mad. Okay. Don't know why she decides to say that to Romeo, but she does. And Romeo finally says, just like, okay, commend me to thy lady. All right. So they exit. That's it. End of scene 5 now, or end of scene 4. Now we've got the plan. In scene 5, you'll see the nurse re-enter. She's going to meet Juliet now and to tell her the happy news. So I'll look forward to reading that one with you tomorrow. Tomorrow we may be finishing Act 2. It's either going to be tomorrow or the next day. So we'll look forward to that. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.